Hi guys, Paul here, and welcome to Sci-Fidelity. What's Sci-Fidelity, you ask? Good question. Actually, it's just a segment where I talk about the sci-fi I've read, and I kind of give it a cool name. That's it. But anyway, welcome if you're into sci-fi or not, because I'm going to talk about a book today that is definitely for people who are not fans of sci-fi as well as sci-fi fans. And I think that's pretty cool because this is a great book to be an entryway into sci-fi for people who haven't read it and want to, or have trouble getting into sci-fi. This is Noah Fregger's Gabriel's Watch, which is book one in the Scrapman trilogy. And I'm going to tell you up front, this book, it says part one, but you can read this as a standalone. You can read this on your own. It has a final, there's no cliffhangers. It's a done story, and you can move on. And I mention that because Noah has told me that while the second book is finished, it still needs editing, and the third book is just in its outline form. It hasn't been quite written yet. So if you wanted to get this, you can read it and not worry about being left in the dark for future stories, because it works as a one and done. It works as a standalone. So I think that's very cool. So let's talk about Gabriel's Watch. Now, this book, the background of the story is it's post-apocalyptic. The world has destroyed itself in a nuclear war. And after that, aliens have come down and offered a helping hand. They took care of the sick and the wounded and tried to help us, including adding the salvation of humanity, which is a genetically altered human that can continue to move the earth forward. They helped us, left us with a chance for survival, and then said, good luck, we'll be back later, bye-bye. And humanity's response to all the help these aliens gave them was to try to hunt down and kill every one of the genetically altered advanced humans who could have helped humanity survive into the future. That's the background. That's the framework on which the story is set. We are put in the eyes, in the brain of the point of view character Miles Stone. Miles Stone is a survivor whose daughter and wife were killed in the war. And this is a theme that runs in varying degrees through the entire story and creates an emotional baseline for the character that I think really works. I mean, sci-fi, I'm going to get into some of the discussion versus the story apparently. Sci-fi is a very much an ideas-based genre. And I think you'll agree with me if you're a sci-fi fan that usually it's about the ideas. Characters usually take a back seat in sci-fi. Fantasy is more known for their character development. And what makes this so unique is this book is really strong in the character development department. The ideas are there, but they form the kind of base for the story. The ideas are a vehicle for the characters to tell their story versus most sci-fi where the characters are the vehicle to project ideas forward. So I found that very interesting. And some of the ideas the book will touch on include post-apocalyptic world, alien invasion, alien assistance, genetic manipulation, robotics, and a few others. But it really does kind of cross the gamut of ideas. And it's really interesting that it all fits very nicely. It's a very clean connection. It doesn't feel forced at all. But the focus of this is going to be the characters. And I said in a previous video when I referred to this that it has the most cross-gender appeal of any sci-fi I've ever read, and it really does. This book has an incredible amount of heart. It has an incredible amount of character development. It has an incredible amount of emotional maturity. There is a sense of heart throughout the book that, kind of even made me feel, especially the ending, it kind of even made me feel something. A curmudgeon-y old. I am the most jaded reader you can imaginable. I am jaded to the core. I do not do mushy. I do not do love stories. I kind of felt something here. It kind of melted my little black heart, and that was an accomplishment, especially like I said, the end, which was where you want the payoff on that. So basically, you have Miles at the beginning of the story breaking into a facility to steal something in this abandoned building, and it's a chip for something called a disc. I mean, for something called Zeke, and he runs into an old man who's living there, a homeless guy, and somebody is breaking into the building, and it's what they call the government. So the government is kind of this militia-based, people-run government that's sprung up. Think Negan from The Walking Dead, similar to that. And they're trying to take over and build the world in their image. And so they come in and they're going to harass this homeless guy because he's in their territory, and they're bad guys. And well, Miles takes them out and takes off, and of course there's going to be consequences. So he gets later on he ends up with a visit from them, and things can escalate from there involving him and the government. Now he lives in a junkyard, and back at his base he has this girl Alice, who is one of the surviving members of humanity's salvation, the alien created genetically engineered humans, who do look a little different. They have a little different skin color. You can see it on the back there. And so they stand out, and she hides in the junkyard with her cat, and brings the disc back, and we find out it's to activate a artificial human, advanced AI robotic creature named Zeke. It would be him right there. And after they get him fired up, he's able to connect to a satellite called Arcturus, which gives them huge advantage in their struggles with the government and scavenging. Miles goes to see a friend of his who betrays him and captures him for the sake of a gangster. And the gangster wants Miles because he's become very radicalized. There is a government facility where they take all the women and use them for their own nefarious purposes, and I don't think I have to explain that in detail. And he asks Miles to help him free them, but not exactly. Miles is definitely a character who'd be up for a mission to free a bunch of damaged, abused women, but that's not exactly what this gangster wants. He wants them all dead. He finds them to be unclean now, and they need to be destroyed. And that includes his own daughter. He thinks he's going to save her by destroying her. Of course, Miles refuses, and therefore creates another enemy. So now you have Miles and Alice and Zeke against the government and these gangsters as basis for the story. There's a little more. There's some complications with Zeke, as you can imagine. And I don't want to give away too much of the story. So we're not going to delve too far into what happens, but we can talk about it in a more wide overview. So there is, I'm not going to say everything in this is positive. There is some slow stuff in the middle, but it wasn't enough to kill the story for me. I did enjoy it overall because the writing is very good. The writing is very professional. And like I said, there's this sense of heart that runs through it that kind of kept me motivated, where I wanted to see where these characters went. And like I said, building characters like this is usually not a sci-fi strength. If you grew up more with Star Wars and sci-fi television shows and such, you'll recognize this much more as something that you can relate to on that level. This is not hard sci-fi. This is not Peter F. Hamilton or Ian Douglas or Neil Asher. This is Star Wars on Tatooine. This is Battlestar Galactica. This is, well, there's actually a lot of other things mixed in here. I've seen not just the Easter eggs, and there's Easter eggs scattered throughout it, and it's not silly, it's not overdone. It doesn't feel like, you know, he's just labeling things and just throwing out mentions. They're kind of part of the story and part of the author's journey. He's putting things he loves into the story in a way that makes sense, but you will recognize some of it. There's definitely a mix of stories in here from the author's experience. You can find Frankenstein and Alice in Wonderland and Star Wars and a multitude of other things that you'll recognize as being influences, but not like he stole them. It's not like obvious, like, hey, do you remember that scene in Star Wars? It isn't like that. It's very much just a very subtle influence, and it works. I enjoyed it, and I never felt like that eye-rolling moment. And you've all had it where you've read nostalgic type books, and you're like, oh, geez, here we go. It's not like that. It's definitely a love letter to what he had growing up and what his experiences were in sci-fi growing up. There's a lot more, and I think it's more fun for you to delve into them and find them yourself. But definitely, they're there. And just to point that out, you see, you probably recognize that logo from Monster Energy drinks. Well, he finds that, and it becomes a reference to Frankenstein. Just to give you a little momentary insight. And it's kind of subtle thing you can find scattered throughout the book. But I want to get back to focusing on what I think is the most important thing about this book and the strength of this, the true strength of this book. Like I said, I have never seen a sci-fi book that I would be like, no, yeah, definitely recommend this to the women in your life who are telling you they don't like sci-fi because of this, or the men in your life who cannot been able to get into sci-fi, who may watch Star Wars or something of the sort, but have never been able to get into sci-fi books. So I went and did my due diligence before I read this book, and looked it up on Goodreads and Amazon, and I noticed a very funny thing. To start with, the reviews are really good, and that's not the problem. I mean, in fact, there's no problem. It was just, there's an awful lot of reviews for a science fiction book by women. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just unusual. As somebody who researches science fiction books a lot, they seem to be mostly, extremely predominantly male readers. And I find this absolutely awesome. This is what we need. We need more books like this that can introduce people who are not sci-fi people to the genre. I'm trying to be delicate here and not get myself into trouble by people assuming I'm saying something I'm not. I'm saying this is a 100% positive thing. It's not a strange thing for me to say that less women seem to be reading sci-fi than men. And this isn't an opinion. This is by the numbers. And I'd like to see that change. And I think this is a great way to start that change. So, like I said, this has a great cross-gender appeal. There is real heart in this book. There is real emotion. Like I said, most sci-fi, hard sci-fi focuses on ideas versus characters, and that's why it turns a lot of people off. This is different. This is a way to change that. And if you're a character-based reader, if you're avoiding sci-fi because you don't like books that are predominantly about the hard ideas and want something to attach to, a character that you can travel with and feel what they're feeling and get involved with, this is perfect. After my rant video, I'm by no means trying to be divisive. This is a positive, I'm saying. This is extremely positive in going a long way towards bringing more people into sci-fi. This kind of book, a character-driven, heartfelt, deeply emotional, emotionally intelligent science fiction read. So if you're the type of reader who's avoided sci-fi because you don't like the style and the ideas and the way those books are handled, this is going to be a little different experience for you. This might be something that can change your mind. This could be a game changer for people who want to read sci-fi but completely bounce off of it. So my recommendation is, if you are a sci-fi fan who likes a bit of characterization, likes a bit of heart, and is okay with a softer, more popcorn sci-fi, or if you're a person who hasn't read sci-fi but wants to try it, or if you're a person who just likes a good emotional storyline with good characters, and the background of this, the setting of this sounds interesting, maybe you've read Hunger Games and enjoyed it. Maybe you've read Divergence and enjoyed it. Maybe you're into Star Wars, or maybe you're into sci-fi television. I think this will be right up your alley. I'm kind of all over the place. I can read sci-fi from anywhere, soft or hardcore. I love popcorn sci-fi. I'm a big Star Wars fan. Firefly. If you're a Firefly fan, I think you can get something out of this because, like Firefly, which was very, very much about the heart of the characters, then I think that you might get some enjoyment out of this. I think this might be something you'd enjoy reading. So, Gabriel's Watch, the book one in the Scrapman trilogy, like I said. Understand that this has a story that ends and you can be done and read one story, which is a nice, refreshing change of pace on its own, by Noah Fregger. And you can find this on Amazon and check it out. Hey guys, guess what? Surprise, I forgot something. So cut in. Yeah, I was actually talking to Noah Fregger's wife, Kelly, and she told me not only is he an author, but he's also a sculptor. And I was curious. So she sent me some pictures, and I thought I'd share a few of them with you and show you his work and see what you thought of it. And actually, I was quite surprised. Some of these sparked my little geek heart, and I really like them. So actually, feel free to comment below, as usual for anything, but, if you see something here you like, tell him about it, just in case he shows up. You might want to hear what you think. Some of these were definitely up my alley as a geek. Some of this sparked some very old memories. So check it out. All right, I'm going to go back to the video and stop babbling. And reviews are hard. So I'm actually going to be shooting the second part of this video now first, for reasons that are me. And so hopefully I don't mess this up and get everything out of order. So I'm going to talk about the other things I read besides this review that are science fiction related for Sci-Fidelity. So I read Caitlin R. Kiernan's Agents of Dreamland, which is the first book in the Tinfoil Hat Dossier series, 3-book series. Now, here's the thing. I've read this before, and I went back and read it because Virgil from Literally Books read it and really liked it. And first time I read it, I did not like it at all, and that was years and years ago. So I thought he liked it, and my reading tastes have changed, so I thought I'd go back and read it again. And so this time I did like it a little better. I still have some issues with Caitlin Kiernan's writing. There's things she does that she'll hit a rough spot with her, where she'll go into this almost unrelated rant that feels disconnected from her story, and I can never get right back into the story. And that always throws me, and that's part of my problem. In this case, it was, I'm sorry, I'm doing this from memory, after I've read about 8 other books, where she was in the point of view of a prostitute, and the prostitute was like waxing poetic, and it just felt so very disjointed and so unrealistic to me that it was impossible to get back into the story for me. And this might be a me thing. A lot of other people like them, like the stories, and can, I don't know if they're just getting past that part better than I am, which is fair because just the rest of the book is fairly good, and I get why other people would like it. It's very Lovecraftian, post-apocalyptic, Lovecraftian type story. If that sounds, good to you, these are short, like novellas. It's like a 3-book series. If that sounds good, I encourage you to check it out. My issues might be very much a me thing, and I'm aware that happens with me. I also read Dark Beauty by Peter Codron, and this novella is kind of an homage to parts of Slaughterhouse-Five. Now, I think that if you are a Slaughterhouse-Five fan, you might get something interesting out of this. If you have, I think you'd need to have at least read Slaughterhouse-Five to really understand and get anything worthwhile out of this. It's not that it's badly written or anything. Seeing that it's an homage to a certain part of Slaughterhouse-Five, if you hadn't read it, it might just kind of go past you without ever making an impact. I think that it's almost necessary. I mean, feel free to read it if you want, but I think it's almost necessary to have read Slaughterhouse-Five to understand what he was getting at and the point he was getting at. And this focuses on like the after effects. It isn't involved in the time traveling aspect that Billy Pilgrim went through in Slaughterhouse-Five. This is where he's in the zoo after the fact with the Trafalgar. I'm sorry, I just lost the name. I had it and I lost it. Trafalgarians. It's a day. And he was in, Billy Pilgrim at that point was in with, what's her name, Montana Wildpack. I'm doing this off of memory. My apologies. Well, he renames everything. That's why I'm getting thrown off, because it's an homage. He changes everybody's name, including the aliens. And I'm trying to remember the new names and trying to remember the old names, and I'm getting completely off track here. So I'm going to read it because I cannot. The new aliens are called the Artrix Matrarius, and Billy Crusader takes the place of Billy Pilgrim, and Dakota Monroe takes the place of Montana. And like I said, it focuses on, I apologize for messing up some of the names there, but it focuses on their time together in the zoo after. It's a short story. It's not a full book. And on their relationship, with a little bit of extras thrown in that kind of seem innocuous. This is really the focus of the story, and it's not bad. It's all right. I mean, I find it fine, but I just think that if you haven't read Slaughterhouse-Five, which I find to be a very good book, by the way, I really enjoyed that. That if you haven't read it, I don't think it will land for you. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know because I've read it. But I don't know if it'll really hit home without having that previous knowledge, understand where he was coming from with what he's doing here. So you kind of need to have that frame of reference is what I'm trying to say. So, but yeah, if you've read Slaughterhouse-Five, it's worth reading once, especially since it's a short story and you can read it free on Kindle Unlimited. But up to you. And finally, I'm going to talk about X-Men Battle for the Atom. And it is sci-fi, not just because it's X-Men who are sci-fi, but this is particularly sci-fi as it's time traveling. And the only people who time travel more than Star Trek is the X-Men, I swear to God. And this is, I love the X-Men. I grew up with the X-Men. The runs between the 70s and the mid-90s, I think, is the best, is where it shined. I mean, it was amazing. This is after that. And this is after they wrote themselves into a corner, in my opinion, where they brought forward the original X-Men into the current timeline. And this is what this involves. And so you have the past X-Men in the present. You have two teams of X-Men in the present that are from the present. And you have the story of X-Men from the future coming back to the present to try and send the past X-Men that are here in the present to the past. Yeah. I just can't do it. Some of the art's fantastic. There's a few good moments. I think Bendis is making the best of what he can of this situation. But the bringing the X-Men back from the past thing, it killed me right there. I mean, I was never able to get past that. That's what stopped me from reading X-Men at that point. I don't think that they come across. I've read the original X-Men, from 1 on to, I don't know, even to the hundreds. And I'm well versed in the original X-Men. This is not a brag. I'm just saying that they do not read the same way now as they originally did. The characters seem very, very different, and I don't enjoy them. You might, if you're not familiar with the originals, if you have no, tether to that story, to them stories, it might not make a difference to you. Like I said, this might be just, my personal experience with them. The art in it's fantastic. I mean, there's no denying that, they do a good job with the art. And of course, I can't find pictures I need. I cannot get through the storytelling that's been going on in this since the mid-90s. It's just not working for me. And that's why I keep reading the X-Men. It's not me being the grumpy old man here, because when it comes to stuff like this, I mean, I read manga, new modern manga, and that doesn't affect me. I can deal with modern storytelling if it's good. I just don't think that any of the Marvel or DC comics currently are consistently good. And so this was originally a $50 book. I picked it up from Ollie's for less than 10. I highly do not recommend you buying this book without checking it out first. Maybe borrow it from the library or buy it at a discount. If you see it like at Ollie's or at a used bookstore, then then check it out. But I would definitely not pay $50 for the hardcover or whatever. I'm sure the paperback, if it came out, is running a lot less. But yeah, did not get on with that. So yeah, that's Sci-Fidelity for the month. I'll be back with more sci-fi for this segment in the future. I hope you enjoyed these reviews. I hope that you got something out of it, and definitely do if Noah Fregger's Gabriel's Watch sounds appealing to you. Definitely check it out. Find his book on Amazon. So check it out, and thank you for showing up. I appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed, please do. And remember, the secret to Zen: read books, pet dogs, and listen to metal. Thank you. Have a good day, guys.